Welcome back to MGoBucks. So we're here with Matt, Ohio State superfan, and myself, trying not to harm myself fan after this past weekend. Matt, what do you think of the Buckeyes and their performance against Penn State?
Go blue.
that was the wrong response, I think.
I was telling.
Am I coming in okay?
Yeah, I was at the Maryland Indiana game, which is an exquisite football game, and I was telling a friend of ours that I get much more excitement these days out of Michigan losing than Ohio State winning. So while we did win, I was much more excited that you guys lost.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like that sort of like visceral hatred and like joy you get from seeing your nemesis go down. But it was interesting because going back to like our predictions for both of those games, the Michigan versus Michigan State, Ohio State versus Penn State, like we were both right and we were both wrong. Like I thought that Michigan was going to beat Penn State and it was going to be a low scoring game. And you thought they were going to win. I don't think you thought it was going to be a high scoring game, right?
I don't think anyone did. So that was surprising because I was surprised that the Michigan State pass defense was that awful. That was the most surprising thing. No, I didn't get to see the game, unfortunately. I'll have to go rewatch that masterpiece later.
Yeah,
but I heard good things.
Yeah, there's some dude wearing #1 jersey. God, he's a freshman, Andrell Anthony. He's got a really cool name. Sounds like he's going to be a star. I mean, he took his very first pass as a Wolverine, true freshman, and took it 93 yards in Spartan Stadium. Like, I thought we were going to win the game at that point. I thought that was like, all right, that's a sign we're going to win. But
no, I thought the same thing, and I was like looking him up. I was like, I've never even heard of this guy, and he was ranked like 538 overall, three-star receiver. And then he comes out of nowhere, and I was like, okay, is this just Michigan waiting a little bit too long to find out that they actually have good receivers, or is it just in the nick of time? And it turns out maybe a little bit too late, because if he could have got some more playing time early on, that guy, maybe he would have had even a better game, and they would have won. But I'm not going to blame this loss on him. But
yeah, he did pretty good for his first time starting.
Just still questioning the coaching there, putting in what you guys lost because a freshman quarterback fumbled at the very end of the game.
Yeah. So that can go both ways in the thought process, because they've been rotating JJ McCarthy in all year long. I mean, they've been bringing him in every single game. He's come in, just kind of had some spot duty, and he's done some good things. He's looked like a freshman sometimes. The only questionable thing about that specific time to put him in is literally his last possession. He fumbled the ball and got lucky. I know you haven't seen the game, but right before that fumble, where he had the exchange with the running back that made, the ball just popped out. The play right before that, in the series before that, he fumbled the ball while running with it, and he got really lucky, and the ball was kicked out of bounds by a Spartan. Michigan retained possession. I think they got a field goal. But you can go both ways on that decision. I don't know if I had a problem with putting it in. It was just right after he fumbled and got lucky. I don't know if maybe the coaches should have said, yeah, let's just put Cade in, from here on out. There were 6 minutes left in the game. That was a huge moment in the game. There were 6 minutes left. Michigan had just gotten the ball back. They had taken a punt back. They had really good field position. They were maybe like on the 45. And JJ came in, fumbled the ball, gave it back to him, and that was one of the 5 touchdowns by Walker in that game. Man, crazy.
So to me, I don't have a problem with rotating the quarterbacks, but I think if it's at the end of a game, all you want is someone who's able to hand the ball off to the running back and someone who has had a little bit more experience doing that. Right. So I just don't understand why you would do that, especially, and also usually when someone has an issue with fumbling, usually they get benched for a couple series or the rest of the game, whether it's a running back or a quarterback, or if unless they're like the entrenched starter. And being that this wasn't the entrenched starter, I don't know why you would be putting him in right after that happened.
And when he did fumble, Michigan was up by 3, and they had the ball in really good field position. So at the very least, maybe you would think that they could have gotten a field goal, but in any case, like, they would have run some clock out. It was just a disaster. That's probably not why they lost the game overall. I think probably if you look at what is his name, Kenneth Walker, that guy, he had like almost 200 yards and 5 touchdowns. So that's probably why Michigan lost. They just couldn't stop him. Like, everything that everyone thought about that game was completely wrong. We thought that Michigan was going to win. That was wrong. It was going to be a low scoring game. That was wrong. We thought
you thought Michigan was going to win. I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't. But even Vegas thought Michigan was going to win. Like, we thought the defense for Michigan was going to hold up, like, and not look terrible. I mean, we were wrong about everything. We thought Cade McNamara would be lucky to throw for 200 yards in that game, and that the running backs for Michigan would do a lot better. Like, both running backs, no running back went over 65 yards for Michigan. And they both, I think one of them, I can't remember, I'm gonna have to look back to the stats. One of them only had like 3.7 average, and the other one had like 4.7 average, something like that. So, and it was awful. I don't think they even combined for 100 yards, Michigan's running backs. So nothing happened the way we thought. Cade threw for 385 yards, 2 touchdowns, and had the 1 pick at the very end of the game when he was trying to drive down the field with less than 2 minutes left. So I don't know if I'm going to blame Cade for that interception. He hardly throws any. He was trying to make something happen, but it came up short anyway. So does that stat line, 385 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions in the rest of the game, except for the bats, does that make your eyes still hurt?
It does.
That was your comment last time.
Yes. I think the Sparty defense is what's making my eyes hurt now. Like, I was just completely shocked that they allowed that to happen. I'm curious to see. I heard that they were putting everything just to stop the run, and apparently, if you leave your receivers with just single coverage, they're able to exploit it a little bit.
Maybe Ohio State should take note of that.
Yeah, we weren't giving up any big plays. We just gave up lots of 10-yard passes, and third down defense was what really killed us.
Right, and you and I both had correct notions on that game. They were going to win. Ohio State was going to win, but I thought it was going to be a close game. Like, and I know I didn't really have any like data to back that up. Obviously, I just felt like they weren't going to perform. Like, Penn State wasn't going to perform the way they did against Illinois, and that they would want to like basically come back. They would focus a lot more on this game against the Buckeyes. I didn't have any data to back that up. That was kind of a guess on my part. I think it was a good guess. I think everyone thought Buckeyes were just going to blow them out.
Well, the problem was we got into the red zone, not just the red zone. We had multiple drives where we got down to the 5-yard line or the 2-yard line, and we had to get field goals or just came away with nothing. And some of it was just shooting yourself in the foot, getting false starts and motion penalties that just killed the drive. And, it's not like we were at someone else's stadium. This was a home game. So those things should never be happening.
There were a lot of motion penalties.
Yeah. So that was very strange. But their defense was playing really good, especially in the first half. They were able to completely shut down a running game, which was surprising. And that was probably the most shocking thing, really. It's weird because they were able to pass protect great the whole game. He didn't get touched once. And but they couldn't. They kept getting screwed up with their run blocking assignments. So my favorite saying always is winning your clunkers. It's much better to have everyone's all upset about a 9-point win against a at the time ranked team. So I'm happy we were able to win, and there's some areas we obviously need to improve on, and I can't wait to keep getting those young guys more experience, because we have a lot of talented young people that just, right now they're just making a lot of youthful mistakes. And once they get a little more experience by the end of the year, I think they're going to be really clicking.
Yeah, I imagine they probably will. But I guess a good defense, and that's Penn State's MO, right? Like they were really good in the red zone against everybody. Auburn, everybody. Like that was kind of like their defensive. They give up a lot of yards in between the 20s, and they weren't allowing a lot of points. So I was surprised that they had that much defensive success against the Buckeyes at Buckeye Stadium in the shoe at night. But I'm not surprised that they had some success. I mean, I don't think anyone was really ever concerned that Penn State might pull this out because you could see Sean Clifford just like in pain. Like he was just like constantly like I felt bad for the guy because he was just constantly in pain, especially in that second half. Like it looked like any second, like someone was going to hit him the wrong way and he was gone. He was out. And then that backup would come in. And then all of a sudden they would be terrible. And they would be terrible without Sean Clifford.
Yeah, the one of the drives that we had on in the red zone, we were able to get so some of it. It wasn't just that their defense did make lots of plays throughout the game, but they had one where they just forgot to cover Olave or someone, and he was wide open, and the quarterback just underthrew it really badly. Like it was a 10-yard pass, and he just missed the wide open guy for the touchdown. And then we had one where we're on 4th and 1 on the 1 yard line, and Henderson moved early, so then that turned into a field goal attempt instead. So I mean there's lots of things that happen. I mean that's potentially 4 points and then another 7 points that we lost because of ourselves, not because of anything they did. So it's a little bit of a mix between both. And the other thing I was going to say was I thought the play calling, usually Ryan Day's been unbelievable with his play calls, and I thought he was coaching like Tressel through a lot of this game because you got to keep trying to. I mean, obviously we were able to run, especially in the second half. We got some big plays, but still the short yardage was not there almost the whole game. And the fact that we're getting 1st and goal on the 4, and then we're still attempting multiple runs up the middle when everyone knows that's what we're going to do, and it's not working. I think any kind of a pass play would have been an easy touchdown. But so part of it was bad play calling by Day and a few mistakes by us, and then some good defense mixed in. So those three things together, then we're like 1 and 6. Inside the red zone for touchdowns, and that's just not usually gonna. I was actually thinking that we might lose the game in the first half, just because usually when you get in the red zone like that and settle for field goals, usually you don't win the game.
That's because you're a fan. You always think we could lose. I had not in the first half, not in the second half at all. I knew that Ohio State would have something happen. It's like even the announcers of the game said, Ohio State, it's just like all of a sudden you think it's a close game, and then boom, 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 3 touchdowns are scored before you can even blink. And that's kind of what happened when that big defensive tackle went in for a touchdown. That dude running was awesome. I mean, it kind of ruined my evening of wanting the Buckeyes to be like beaten, make me feel better about Michigan's loss. But I still loved seeing that big dude run. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So we have, Jackson Smith and Jigba, our star receiver who ran 60 yards, got caught. We have the 5-star freshman running back running 60 yards and getting caught. But our 300-pound defensive tackle, now he runs 60 yards and he's not getting touched.
No, yeah, so, I know. They were like, he's gone. He's gone. No need to even chase him. We're not going to catch him.
The defensive players are going to be talking a lot of smack this week in practice, I'm sure.
So question on really just both quarterbacks for Michigan and Ohio State. Are we expecting too much of them? I mean, like they're both young. Like CJ Stroud, redshirt freshman. I mean, he had some playing time last year, but he didn't even throw a pass. I mean, he looks fantastic, but some of his passes and some of his decisions are sometimes you're like, like kind of scratch your chin a little bit. But like, are we asking too much of them? Like, they're going to have to go through their growing pains, right?
I don't know. I just think when you keep getting multiple quarterbacks in a row that are just amazing. It's hard to say that because I mean, ever since we got Haskins and then we get Justin Fields, and I think people just assume that everyone is just going to be like, third year Justin Fields right from day one. And I mean, honestly, his statistics are pretty close to.
Oh yeah, they
it. I mean,
fantastic.
it's incredible. And I would say really like his only real flaw, at least in this game, was just he refused to run the ball at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why just a few QB runs would have probably loosened up the inside run game quite a bit, but he just would not even run at all.
I saw something about that, and this just popped into my head, this notion. Is he worried about running? Because if he even gets hurt, if he even has like a scratched thumb, basically like there's a backup behind him, like a couple of them that are ready to take his job. I mean, he's got to know that, right? I mean, that's got to be a piece of stress, in his back of his mind. He knows he's got actually 3 quarterbacks. The Quinn Ewers, granted, he's not really probably much of a threat this year, but 2 other guys are right behind him and they're ready to take. Like, I think I would probably be careful too. Like, all you have to do is get nicked up for 1 game, then they come in the next game, have a great game against someone terrible. Like he got injured in this Penn State game. They go play Nebraska. Nebraska's going to give up a lot of points to the Buckeyes I think it's this weekend. The next guy in looks fantastic. And then all of a sudden, all the fans are like, hey, play that dude. He's got 5 stars. CJ Stroud only had 4 stars.
That already happened earlier when Stroud took a week off and the backups were good, but not anywhere near his level, even against a bad opponent. So I don't think, I think people were calling for the backup earlier, but once we saw that the backups weren't as good as the starter, I don't think that was as much of an issue. And I think the only thing I could think of is either the coaches are telling him not to run, or he is just worried that, maybe he would re-injure whatever was going on with his shoulder the first two weeks of the year.
Yeah, maybe that. Yeah, I mean, that could be it too. And I want to come back to a question that I asked you in the last show that you totally dodged. You dodged beautifully because I forgot to hold you accountable. I asked if you know where I'm going to. What do you think is going to happen? What's your roster going to look like? The quarterback roster going to look like next year? I mean, you've got a 5-star. What's his name? McCord.
Yep.
He's a 5-star. Then you've got the other guy. I can't remember his name. I think he's maybe like
Jack
a high
Miller.
4-star. Like, he's a talented guy. And then you've got Quinn Ewers. Like, he's going to be ready. He's like, hey, I've been here a year. I put in my time. So 2022 is going to have a lot of expectations, a lot of, hey, when am I going to play kind of instances with these quarterbacks. What are your thoughts on that? How many quarterbacks that are on the roster today are going to be on there the same time next year?
I think we lose at least 1 and maybe 2. I'm not sure. So I think for sure we're going to have obviously the starter, and then I think Quinn Ewers is still going to be here too. And I think there's going to be no matter what happens at the end of this year, I think there's still going to be a significant QB battle next year between Ewers and CJ Stroud. And I think, McCord probably has the highest chance of leaving because he's higher. He's recruited a little bit higher. So I think that he might be, hold on a second. He might be the one that's more likely to go because more people are probably going to want him versus Jack Miller hasn't really played it that much, even in mop-up time. And, he's not as highly regarded. So maybe he might be more of the team player who knows he's probably not going to start. And he probably doesn't have as many offers from other people too. So maybe he would be fine with just being a backup, but I don't know.
The NIL has really kind of done a number on this, like, and the transfer portal and the NIL. Like now, like no one wants to sit now because you don't get NIL money, the good NIL money, generally, unless you're at the quarterback position anyway, unless you're starting. I know Quinn Ewers has, he's got a great deal because he's a generational quarterback. Buckeyes don't want to lose him. They're going to do everything to keep him, obviously. But this is going to be really interesting to see what happens, because this is now their livelihood. Like, it's not just like the the good old days where quarterbacks like, hey, I'll bide my time, I'll redshirt my first year, learn the system. Maybe I'll start starting or playing at my redshirt junior, and then next 2 years I'll have 2 years to like really be like the guy and go in, and then maybe get to the NFL. Like, those days are gone. Like, well, now your money is at stake.
The one thing that I think that it could be a situation where he wouldn't have a problem, playing a little bit as backup duty, the primary backup next year, and maybe situationally like your freshman is this year, because if Stroud is having another solid year, he could go pro after next year anyway. So then, Ewers should have just been in high school anyway this year. So he still should be a senior. So it's not like he's even really, just because, he has technically been, and I'm not even sure how the pro rules work. Usually it's 3 years removed from high school, but
right.
So I don't know how that rule works when you leave high school a year early.
That's a good question. Got no clue.
Yeah, so that's another thing to think about. But I would think that he wouldn't care as much since he's technically a senior, and I wouldn't expect that he would leave after 1 year, knowing that after next year, CJ's almost definitely gone. And the only reason I would see him leaving is if CJ decided to come back for another year after that. Then I could see maybe he's definitely not going to want to sit then. But I wouldn't think that sitting 1 year while also playing a decent amount, because our starters usually come out in half the games, after the first drive of the third quarter anyway. So he would get a ton of playing time. Plus, he would probably play, as long as he's even close to as good as advertised, he was going to be getting some reps even during when the game's in doubt anyway. So he should be playing a decent amount no matter what.
So it sounds like you're predicting at least one quarterback is not there in 2022, right?
Yeah, it's one or two. I think that the main ones are going to stay, but I think unfortunately we're probably going to lose McCord.
Now, did you hear some of the rumors around Quinn Ewers and his Twitter account? Like, somehow Ohio State came off, and I didn't read a whole lot about this. I only saw headlines, so don't quote me on anything, but there was something going on with his Twitter account. Have you heard?
Nope.
Nothing? I think you must be blocking that out.
No,
there's a lot of rumors now that he might transfer. You might want to Google that.
I've listened to at least a dozen different Buckeye podcasts. I haven't heard anyone say a single thing about that. So it must be on one of your QAnon Michigan websites that you're hearing this wishful thinking.
It's the QAnon, like the QAnon Michigan section. Like, you can go to QAnon website and there's a Wolverine section you can just subscribe to. Great idea. Yeah. So, speaking of this, so why don't you have a jersey again? You see this? I know you were giving me some excuse about what your size is or something like that, or why aren't you representing with the Buckeye jersey? Why just
I'm getting a new one in a week?
Why don't you have one though?
Because they're gone.
They're gone? What happened to them? How would you let your jerseys go?
They're all in storage. I don't even know where they are right now.
Wow. So they're
in a box
badly?
They're in a box somewhere.
Sounds like an excuse to me. We need to represent. This is the representation right here. And I'm feeling terrible because now, after yesterday,
that looks like a Purdue jersey.
No, this is amazing. Actually, this is the number 3. I got this a long time ago. This was the Marlon Jackson. Now, it doesn't say Jackson on the back of it, but I bought this in honor of Marlon Jackson. That's how old this is. I'm sure you remember that dude.